Great to have you tuned to the network service of Radio Nigeria. The program is Spark. Spark is a program brought to you by the International Center for Investigative Reporting, supported by the International Budget Partnership, IBP, to tackle pressing issues in our nation around unequal maternal health care services, gender-inclusive agricultural support for small-scale women farmers, access to loan, among others. I'm your host, Blessing Ebireri. Today we delve into how women who constitute a significant part of the agricultural workforce face challenges accessing resources and opportunities. We'll explore ways the government can act to support them better and the impact such support can have on food security, community development, and economic growth. Agriculture is a key sector in Nigeria and many other African countries, employing a large portion of the population, especially women. Yet, despite their vital role, women farmers often lack access to land, finance, technology, training, and markets compared to their male counterparts. Joining me now to share expertise on the topic, strengthening government support for women in agriculture, is Chris Kaka, the National Program Coordinator, Trade Network Initiative, and Hajara Ramson, Monitoring and Evaluation Officer, SWOFON Abuja. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
And to your esteemed listener, telephone line to make your contributions are 0915 091 0482 or 0915 091 0483. You can send your questions on WhatsApp to 0810 250 7579. I'll take that again. 0810 250 7579. We're also live on Facebook at the ICIR. Don't forget to include your name and location. Hajara, I'll be starting with you. Okay. I just want to know the biggest challenges women farmers face in accessing agricultural resources, such as land, credit, technology in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So, women farmers contribute 70 to 80% of the food we consume here in Nigeria. Yet, their needs and their livelihoods are not taken into consideration when government wants to do interventions and so many things. The challenges women farmers face are structural and they are interconnected in gender inequality, weak policy implementations, and so many socio-cultural issues. Okay. So issues around land, one of the major issues is cultural, where women do not own lands. So when their husbands are late or when their parents, when stuff happen, women do not have control or access to land. So it's different. It's one thing to have access, is another thing to have access and control. Sometimes they have these lands, but they cannot control this land. Yeah, so it's one of the major issues smallholder women farmers are facing. Then the other issue is lack of documentation. Okay. Even when women cultivate land, they often do not have legal titles to this land. Okay. So it is not their own at the end of the day. So you see where I talk about ownership. It's still an issue. The women farmers their lands are usually very small and less fertile compared to their male counterparts. So those are the issues. Then we have issues around poor access to credit and finance. When information is not there, it doesn't get to the real smallholder women farmers where things like this are in place, it doesn't really get to them. Then we have issues around limited financial literacy. Okay. Then we have issues around when government wants to give out things or banks, they do not have the necessary collateral to be able to benefit from these things that are supposed to be for them. Then we also have issues around political farmers hijacking those things that belong to these smallholder women farmers. Another barrier would be agricultural technology. So the world has moved, and there are so many things now that if you're not tech savvy, it affects a lot of things. True. So there needs to be a lot of capacity building, sensitizations, awareness to ensure that these women are captured in everything that they need to be captured to ensure that we are food secured as a nation in Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Hajara, for that. Chris, how does this limited access to these resources impact women's productivity and overall economic empowerment.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just pick it up from where she ended.
Okay.
If we agree that women play a critical role across the agricultural value chain, then it means that if they are limited in terms of capacity to be able to produce, it will definitely affect the total productions, aggregate production of food in this country. And apart from that, there are so many, most of them actually are women-headed households. It will also affect their livelihood because that's where they make the money they live off on. And so by and large, while it is having a direct impact on them as food producers, because the more access you have to agricultural facilities, it means you live a better life because you are able to produce more. But when you also, the reverse is the case when you don't have the necessary asset to some of these particular input. But then, having said that, generally anyway, so it will generally affect the overall food productions and our food security in this country beyond having a direct immediate impact on the livelihoods of these food producers. But beyond that, we must not also continue to trade in the rhetoric of the fact that these women do not have access. They also need to make efforts. Government is doing a lot in this direction. Today now, just recently, we just finalized the review of the National Agenda Policy in Agriculture, which was spearheaded by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. And that's to say, look, we need to mainstream, going forward now, whatever intervention, initiative that government brings up, wherever it is, you must have a critical component of it going to the women. It's not like a policy right now. And that's that's one of the giant strides the government is actually taking. So it's also left for us to begin to monitor the implementation of this thing. So it doesn't end on the letter and the prints of the paper, but that is something that is carried out in the implementation of whatever interventions, initiative that government is pushing out now in the agri space. A certain percentage is going to the women. So we're not doing them a favor anymore. It is now their right to demand for it. Beyond that, again, is the fact that we must also agree that some states are taking initiative in ensuring that there is a component in the budget of the state dedicated to women interest.
True.
While the other budgets might have an overall impact, which is gender blind, but there's a component of it that relates to the women directly. And these are things that government is doing. It may not have crystallized, like she said. There's a lot of political farmers. So the interventions are there, but the benefits are not trickling down to the, because somewhere along the line, there seems to be a barrier, and the government really need to investigate that to see how we can deal with it.
Okay, so Hajara talked about political farmers, and now you've still brought it up. For our listeners that don't know what these political farmers are, can you just enlighten us on them? Because we know that they are small-scale women farmers, and so political farmers are...
So we have real farmers, the real smallholder women farmers that are the major producers of food. Then we also have people that are in the corridors of power that hijack things that are supposed to be for the smallholder women farmers.
So
we call them political farmers because they're in the corridors of government and they have access, they have information, so they hijack these things and it doesn't get to the real farmers. And most times when they hijack these things, they get to sell it to the women farmers. Yes. It's sometimes supposed to be at subsidized rates when government gives, or sometimes even free. But when it's hijacked by the political farmers, they sell it to them at very high rates.
So we say no to political farmers.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just there's specific government policies or programs that you've seen work in supporting women in agriculture, either locally or internationally.
Okay, so the GESS, the Growth Enhancement Support Scheme, widely known as the GESS, was one of the most impactful agricultural programs that happened in Nigeria. It was designed to deliver subsidized inputs for smallholder women farmers, cutting off middlemen and ensuring transparency through an e-wallet system. But over the years, the scheme has weakened and is not even active anymore. And it's important that government brings back some of this because, like I mentioned earlier, this weak policy implementation, it's a very big problem because Nigeria we have a lot of policies. The implementation is always the problem. So one government comes, they bring in this policy, another government comes, they want to do away with that one and start a new one. So a problem of continuity is always a very big problem. But I think the GESS did an amazing job. If it comes back, it will do fantastic, and it will be impactful to the smallholder women farmers because that one was directly for the smallholder women farmers.
Okay. So we bring back GESS. That's Growth Enhancement and Support Scheme.
Yes.
Okay. Chris, how can stronger support for women participation in cooperatives and agricultural value chain improve their income, productivity, and influence in the sector?
I didn't get the question. How can
strong support for women's participation in cooperatives and agricultural value chain improve their income?
Okay, fine. The cooperative thing, you see, a lot of interventions and programs that government design, it's not actually targeted at single farmers. If you work in isolation, you wouldn't benefit from it. Government expects you to to form yourself into group. If you're working in silos, you will never get the benefit of it. And that's why often watch people who release criminals, they don't belong to any union or associations, or any farming organizations. It's important you belong to one. Once you find yourself in one, you are one step towards getting the interventions that government is delivering to smallholder farmers. And that's why it's important. And if you're able to do that, so it's one thing to belong to it, it's another thing not to get it. But if you are able to actually belong to one, then you are a step towards getting closer to the solution, because that's where the government, at the national and the subnational level, that's the way government works. So we're saying smallholder women farmers need to find the need to form themselves into group. If you're not in one, associate with one. There's so many women farming groups. There are commodity associations as well, specific commodity associations. Form yourself into even the intervention the NISA was given. Every credit facility that government has set up in this country, it is not talking to an individual. It is talking to oftentimes group. And why the group is better and more favorable, particularly for people who give out credits, that you see, you not only become liable, but all of you become jointly liable to it. And because you are all in a group, there is more security provided for that particular facility than one person saying, I want 5 million naira, and you don't have 100,000, you don't have 50,000 on your account. But when you are collected together, the fact that all of you are jointly, you can't go away, because one benefits another, you need to deliver back for the other person to benefit. So there are people check and balances within that particular system that help to ensure that the intervention continue to move on. And that's where we think farmers should begin to work with. Okay.
Remember, you can call these numbers 0915 091 0482 or 0915 091 0483 and tell us what you think or ask our guest any question related to the topic. Also, you can send us your question via WhatsApp on this number 0810 250 7579. We're also live on Facebook at the ICIR. Hajara, you talked about land ownership for women farmers. And what can government do to ensure more women gain secure land rights?
Okay, so land rights issue has been an issue in Nigeria. It's been there for the years. I think government has not taken priority to ensure that this thing has been dealt with and to properly address the issues that concern smallholder women farmers or women farmers as regards land. I think there needs to be a review of the Land Rights Act. Okay. Because it's been there in existence for so many years. There needs to be a review where issues are properly dealt with and those concerns where the smallholder women farmers have been talking about needs to be addressed in the review. So I would say that there needs to be a review of the Land Rights Act. It's been in existence for so many years. Yes, there's a lot of loopholes, a lot of gaps, here and there. It needs to be addressed because sometimes, yes, the women have lands, but do they have access? Do they have control
over this land?
It's an issue that needs to then be socio-cultural issues here and there also needs to be addressed.
Okay, you're tuned to the network service of Radio Nigeria. And the program is Spark, brought to you by the International Center for Investigative Reporting, supported by the International Border Partnership. We'll be discussing strengthening government support for women in agriculture. We'll go on a short break now, and when we return, we'll be taking your calls for questions and contributions. Please stay tuned. To know you're still here with us, and if you just tuned in, this is Spark on the network service of Radio Nigeria, brought to you by the International Center for Investigative Reporting. We have been looking at strengthening government support for women in agriculture. The telephone lines are open for you to make your contribution or ask question. The numbers to call are 0915 0483 or 0915 091 0482. This question is for Chris. How can government financial institutions and agro-credit schemes be made more accessible and friendly to women in agriculture?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think first thing is to realize that the economic powers that both men and women have are different.
Okay.
And that if you want to do any interventions, you must be very mindful of that particular one. Women do not have the kind of assets men have generally. So when you provide any form of interventions for them, I mean, I've always held the opinion there must be a positive discriminatory interest rate for women. So if you're charging a flat rate of, say, 10% for every other person, you must take into consideration that these women play a critical role, but they do not have the kind of economic power women. So you need to be coming down below that particular 10% for them. And that's why I say you must have a discriminatory positive interest rate that is actually suitable for women. That way you encourage them to produce more. That way you keep them involved and effective in the agricultural space. I think that's one thing government need to do. Beyond that, when you provide this facility, can we have a disaggregated interventions in terms of providing credit? So don't just say this is the amount of money we push out there for farmers to actually say this is the component of it that is meant for so percentage of it is meant for women smallholder farmer. Let it then be that they do not provide the necessary documentation to assess it, but let it be that there is a pool of funds dedicated to them and not leave it on a. You don't make it a level playing field where, like she said, oftentimes the political farmers hijack these things and the real beneficiaries. So for government, we've done what we need to do in terms of policy, but the implementation at the end of the day, you see them real statistics. NISA will tell you we're giving so amount of loan. This one will tell you we've done this amount of loans, but the real beneficiaries themselves. But ask them, have you ever assessed Bank of Agri credit? They tell you never. But Bank of Agri itself is having statistics that were given these people. So somewhere along the line,
so who are the people actually collecting?
Exactly, and they'll provide you with statistics. Oftentimes, there's a lot of insiders lending going on there. A lot of insiders lending. They themselves are actually the one beneficiaries of it. A lot of insider lending, and the rest of them are to the political ones. A few of them, just to also show that they did something, might give to, instead of giving to 5 of us here, they give to 1 of us. So that in the event you begin to ask and say, oh, I have an evidence somebody collected. True. But the rest of us who are supposed to be the beneficiary never got it in the first place. So we're saying governments need to Bank of Agri, for instance, now need to be told 30% of the liquidity you have meant for actually agri space dedicated to women smallholder farmers. If you really want to fight the issue of women and poor access to credit in this country, I think that's the way to go around it.
Okay, you talked about this real farmers not even getting access to this loan, this information. So Hajara, how does education now come into this for smallholder women farmers?
Okay, there needs to be a lot of sensitization, awareness, and it needs to go to the grassroots. So one of the things we're beginning to talk about is intersectionality.
Okay.
So yeah, there are smallholder women farmers, but they have different needs. They are far to reach areas is one of the issues. Is government going down to the grassroots because those are the real farmers. So a lot of sensitization, a lot of awareness creation needs to be done, and even capacity building. They are willing, they want to farm, there are a lot of barriers just stopping them from doing what they need to do. But if these sensitizations, awareness, information gets to them, they will be able to improve their livelihoods and improve their productivity and to ensure that we're food secured as a nation.
Okay, so I'm curious, how can government programs better target these farmers in grassroots areas?
Okay, I'll tell you, for instance, government is not oblivious of these challenges she has actually. See, when the Bank of Agri was created, forget the name it meant then, it was in every local government. In fact, it was one of the institutions of government that had the largest network. And so wherever you are expected to be able to reach these people. I mean, they expect them to be able to reach these farmers. I know they shut down some of their offices now. They've got some regional office somewhere in Kaduna thereabout and a few other ones like that. We need them to open up those offices. Yeah, they could become like cost centers.
Okay.
To be honest with you, they're not generating any profit for them because sometimes the cost of maintaining such office in such rural area is very huge. But then the target is what actually counts. Government subsidizes a lot of things. So what stops you from subsidizing your stations at a particular place just for the purpose of actually meeting the targets of them? Because if you go to this commercial bank, their responsibilities to their shareholder, they must also declare dividends. So there is an apathy of lending to agriculture because the risk element of it is higher than me giving you money to go import something from China and you sell it off and I'm too sure you get my money. But here you are, if I put it in agriculture, There is a natural disaster that I cannot fight in it. So the risk element involved in it is so high. So first you need to deal with the apathy. And I think NISA deal with it. The apathy of this credit facility institutions towards lending to agriculture. NISA tried to do it by de-risking it. And all it does is, I give you the facility. In the event this farmer is not able to pay, central banks take the responsibility. I say, I will pay for it. And if you as a farmer take up that facility, as you continue to honor your obligation over time, that's what is called a drawback interest. A percentage of the interest you have paid return back to you to encourage you to continue to pay. So there are laudable interventions there, well thought out and well designed scheme, but just implementations and workings of which something seems to go wrong along the line. And I think we're not throwing them away. It is about looking at what are the challenges with these policies. Let us deal with the nitty-gritty of the challenges and see how we can actually make progress.
Okay, Jerry.
Okay, just to add to what Mr. Chris said, he said it earlier. One of those things he said is earlier was working in silos. The need for women farmers to also coordinate themselves, to be in cooperatives. It's easier for government to reach smallholder women farmers that way, rather than working as individuals. And it's easier to get the loans, information, and all that when we work together in a coordinated group or platform.
Okay. So, Chris, what success story would you love to share where government intervention significantly improved women access to agriculture?
Excellent. So here it is. I always paint a picture when I do presentation that if you check any commodity, check that across the value chain of it. Anyone you can think of. If women are not the producer, they are producers. If they are not the producer, they are the processors. If they are not the processors, they are the one actually providing warehousing for some of those things.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, oftentimes they are the ones you meet in the market. So they are the tail end of reaching the consumers in it. And that's role they play, tells you how active they are. And if we are saying if government can do what is needed, or as government has done, is review some of this policy, look at the challenges that happen, I can tell you that the cost of food in the market will drop. Our foreign loans on food imports today is very high. It's going to drop significantly. And once the cost of import on food drops, it means the pressure on the forex, because what you do is you pool resources by government. You are importing this money this food not with naira. You are importing it with our foreign hard currency, and it is putting pressure on our reserve. If you can free up that kind of pressure on the reserve, I can tell you that the value of our money, the stability of our foreign exchange will come back. Because a chunk of the naira, a chunk of the problem arising with issues of devaluation of our country is also related to food import that has continued to actually face our country as a nation. So I'm sure if you do that, it will impact a lot as a country, individually as the producers of the food themselves, and every other person in the value chain will begin to benefit from it.
Okay, so before we wrap up, one word to end this conversation. What you want government to do for this smallholder women farmers, and to see that they are being impacted and they grow in productivity and in value too. Engender all your policies. Okay. Provide statistics. If you tell them how many women farmers do we have in Nigeria, government is going to be looking at you. So you want to plan, but you don't have the statistics. It means you have already planned to fail in the first instance. How many women farmers are you trying to provide assistance for? You need to have that statistics, and you continually update it. So government needs to liaise with some of these women farmers association. They are well organized. I'm sure if you ask them today, they can tell you the number they have per state and the commodities they produce and where you can find them. So you need these particular statistics to do what you need to do. And I can tell you government will begin to make progress. So we're saying the policies are there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just look at the challenges that policy is actually facing in terms of implementing it, in terms of achieving the desired objective it was designed to be. And I tell you, we'll begin to make progress as we continue to evolve, review, make improvements on the existing policies. True. And they will be there. So Hajara, your one word?
Okay, as advocates, we must continue to call on the federal government and the state governments of Agric to bring back the GESS program, to ensure that it's stronger, it's fairer, and there's inclusivity. In that way, smallholder women farmers would be able to do more to ensure that there's food security in Nigeria.
And we say no to political farmers too?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for joining us on today's program, Chris and Hajara. And to you, our dear listeners, remember that supporting women farmers means investing in Nigerians' food security and economic prosperity. We encourage you to engage your local government officials, support women-led agricultural activities, initiative, and raise awareness about these issues within your community. Many thanks to the studio manager, Nuruddin Usman, the producer, Vivian Onowewari, the engineer, Christy Alkali, and the ICIR social media team led today by Israel and Gabriel. I am Blessing